Thank you, Jason. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining for today's session. As Jason mentioned, we will cover how to identify and secure IoT devices in the corporate and enterprise environment. Quickly sharing my screen, and we can dive right through. So as Jason mentioned, I'm a senior product manager in Defender for IoT. I've been with the group for 2 years, and I'm leading the enterprise IoT product. Defender for IoT covers several aspects of the IoT, OT, and unmanaged devices world. It all started back in 2013 when CyberX started securing OT and critical environment devices, creating a new offering for this emerging market. In 2018, Defender for IoT, back then it was used to be Azure Security for IoT, was established with the focus on managed IoT devices, something that we still do. And in 2020, Microsoft acquired CyberX and added the product and capabilities that CyberX created into our product, effectively creating Defender for IoT. Earlier in 2021, we've completed several more acquisitions that have strengthened our knowledge, expertise, and capabilities in the IoT and OT world, namely Refirm Labs and RiskIQ, that enable us to much better identify risk and to reduce the attack surface for our customers. And in 2022, we are going GA with our product that will include OT security, IoT security, as well as managed IoT security. So this is a quick introduction to Defender for IoT. And just to quickly cover what we're going to discuss today. So starting from the problem, what is really the pain points for defenders, for the security teams in the enterprise environment with respect to IoT security? We will then deep dive into our approach, how we're going at providing a solution and empowering IT security teams to cover IoT devices. We'll do a quick example around printers, and we will also discuss very quickly around the future of IoT security and perhaps also a little bit about where Microsoft is going with IoT security. So let's dive right in. I think it's no secret that enterprises are investing more and more in adoption of IoT devices. We're seeing a plethora of devices throughout the organization to support different needs, but mostly to boost productivity. We're seeing how enterprises are spending an increasingly amount of money around IoT devices, whether it's around platforms, hardware, software, but naturally also around security, which means that this is becoming an increasingly bigger part of the environment of the network and of the overall attack surface of the organization, of the enterprise. And this is really creates a lot of friction and basically creates the ancient security trade-off, where on one hand, introducing these devices supports productivity, it encourages business, it allows organizations to introduce new business lines or to save on operational excellence. But at the same time, as we mentioned, there are now new devices that are part of the network, which means that there are more parts of the network that can be abused, that can be exploited, and can be part of a campaign. So for security teams living in this tension, it's a growing pain and a problem. And more organizations, especially large enterprises, are understanding that this needs to be solved as quickly as possible, because these devices are already in the network. We all have printers and cameras, smart TVs and conference rooms, which means that the problem is already here and we need to be able to address it. So diving a bit deeper into the situation, the catch-22 basically, that the security teams, the defenders are facing with IoT devices. So really starting with, as mentioned, the productivity, there are increasingly number of devices that are being introduced by the CIO or by other managers in the organization with the purpose of pushing the business forward and increasing the productivity overall. We're also seeing other kind of lower level managers who are viewing the opportunity of the connected world, of the cloud, of being part of the network, and are pushing more and more devices into the network, basically taking physical devices and making them digital. We're seeing how IT teams are being asked to add different devices on a daily basis, but without any secure process, without any specific policies or regulations. So for IT teams, it's basically taking some device and just plugging it to the wall or plugging it to the port, making it part of the network without any security ideation around it, basically making it someone else's problem. And naturally, and this is something that we've seen growing very much throughout the past 2 years with how the work environment has changed, is how users are bringing their own devices, introducing numerous new devices, whether it's their cell phones or tablets or web cameras or Raspberry Pis, and even we've seen drones and much more advanced or unique equipment being added to the network without anyone even knowing about it. So basically, we're seeing a lot of different personas and stakeholders in the organization adding devices everywhere of different sorts, of different kinds, for different purposes, without anyone really creating a secure process or keeping an eye and inventorying these devices. And at the same time, from the CISO perspective, nothing really changes. The security team is still focused and being measured around IT security. This is the main mission. This is the reason that they are there. And this is what the organization is expecting them to do. And IoT is kind of a weird animal in that terrain. CISOs today are not investing enough with respect to manpower, with respect to knowledge, training, expertise, and tools to empower security teams and enable them to better understand and manage the IoT devices, which basically creates a lot of confusion because these devices are now the problem of the defenders. They need to provide a solution for that, but they don't have additional means of doing it effectively, especially as devices keep growing in diversity and in numbers. But most of all, we're seeing how adversaries are just loving IoT devices, which makes complete sense. They are everywhere. In many cases, they are misconfigured. They have been added roguely. They are not being monitored, but they still carry packages or even OS versions that can be used. So we're really seeing how adversaries are targeting IoT devices more and more. And really with some real life examples, most of them are based on Microsoft research. We identify how along the attack kill chain, IoT devices take a bigger and bigger part. So this translates into business risk. We have risk around intellectual property theft and competitive advantage being compromised. It impacts the brand, and it can even introduce ransomware, which is probably the #1 concern for organizations throughout the world. Bottom line, this increasing sophistication without the defenders keeping ahead of the curve and identifying this risk creates an increasing gap around the attack surface of the organizations and creates basically this headaches or this pain points for the CISO, the security team, and the organization in general. It is hard to focus around the problem and to understand the overall targets with respect to IoT security. We're seeing the quantity increasing very fast while manpower and dedicated analysts are not increasing in the same manner. It's hard to translate this risks into action, to harness and to work with IT teams, with network teams, and provide them with tasks in order to reduce the attack surface. But most of all, it's hard to estimate how this impacts the business, how this risk may translate into business impact, and to manage alerts, incidents, and basically communicate upwards what these security flaws are creating for the organization. So really the solution, the approach that organizations are taking, which makes complete sense, is trying to interlace, to combine the IoT security into the existing IoT security stack and operations and way of work. Because introducing a completely new world, completely new systems, language is confusing, takes a lot of time to ramp up, and basically augmenting the existing operations is much easier and enables the security teams to much better respond to this new world. So from capabilities perspective, what security teams really need in order to be able to address the IoT security issue is, as mentioned, inventory, the ability to know what we have, where it is, what part of the business does it serve, is it authorized or not, and to keep it going on a steady basis, to be able to effectively and proactively assess the risk, especially around misconfiguration, vulnerabilities, and the way that these devices are working and communicating in the environment. Again, so we can translate it into action within the organization. Security alerts to understand when we are being compromised. As mentioned, attackers are moving more and more towards IoT security, meaning that detections that focus on endpoints, on servers, are becoming less and less effective because attackers find new ways of becoming stealthy. And naturally, data, the basis for all of this, our ability to investigate, to contextualize, and to even hunt around IoT devices in the same manner that we do it for IT security. The trick is really to do it with the right expertise, to create this single language, to have the threat intelligence and the overall security operations added into the IT stack, and creating, I think this is perhaps the most important part, creating secure processes of adopting and introducing new IoT devices so that the list of tasks that the security team has will not rise endlessly, but will be managed as more and more devices are just introduced now in a secure and managed way. So this is really kind of a quick run through the main problem and the approach for the solution. And I want to showcase how we address it in Microsoft and how we go about it. So I started off by presenting Defender for IoT. And I mentioned that we have multiple solutions and approaches for unmanaged devices. And I think that this slide tells the whole story. So moving from the traditional endpoints that we see in the organization towards more unique or more specific devices, we have first really the enterprise IoT devices that are everywhere, whether it's network devices such as routers, switches, and every other type of device, or the actual corporate IoT devices such as VoIP phones, printers, smart TVs, etc. We have the more industrial type of devices, starting from the more general parts such as alarms, thermometers, etc., to the really OT and ICS specific devices such as PLCs and industrial equipment. And this is covered through our OT offering. And as mentioned, and this is something that we are working with device builders, is the dedicated IoT, where we have the security microagent. So naturally, our focus for today and for this call is around the enterprise IoT devices. So our approach or our kind of solution relies on collecting the right data. And in order to do that, we are utilizing multiple sources of collection so that we can have a very broad and exact and precise visibility into devices throughout the organization. So the first collector that we are utilizing is the Defender for IoT Network sensor. This is based on the knowledge and expertise brought to Microsoft by CyberX, and the server is installed in the customer premises. It feeds on traffic via a span configuration and collects data through the analysis of the traffic and sends all the relevant information to Azure, where the heavy lifting is done and all the advanced analysis for the data. An additional and very important source of collection is the Defender for Endpoint agents. Basically, and I know that we have many MDE, Defender for Endpoints customers on this session as well. The idea is very simple. We have turned and are using the existing agents in Windows 10 and Windows 11 devices, machines basically, into small sensors. They work both passively and actively to collect information from the subnet, from the environment that they reside in order to identify devices. So these two collectors are basically working together, identifying devices from different parts of the corporate network, and are sending all of it to the cloud, where again the analysis is done. We are also using some third-party sources, specifically Zeek and a few other, to contextualize and provide enrichment for the devices that we identified. So a very quick dive into how the network sensor and the Defender for Endpoints agent work together. If we're looking at this as an abstraction of an IT network where we have several VLANs or several subnets, each one working for a different business unit and have different devices in there, we're seeing also that as part of zero trust and micro segmentation, that more and more enterprises are moving for dedicated IoT network, whether it's building management system networks or just generally networks that are dedicated for IoT. Again, the devices are just spread throughout the environment. And by, again, from one end, from a bottom-up approach, we're utilizing the MD agents throughout the corporate IT network, as well as the enterprise IoT sensor, who that basically is installed on a gateway switch and is a top-down approach for the traffic. These two work together in order to identify all of the devices throughout the organization with respect to classification, metadata, enrichment, etc., where the user can get everything in the portal in Azure. So we kind of went through the problems. So just very quickly going at how this solution addresses the issues, the pains that the CISOs have. So having this unified inventory that feeds off from these different collectors, we are able to provide a very rich and concise and actionable context and visibility into the devices throughout the organization. This helps analysts to track and to identify and to map what devices they have, which is really the main and first problem that customers have in their environment, and to also be able to integrate it again into their security operations, into their CMDB or ticketing system, to basically, again, take the IT existing operation and add and augment the IoT into it, and we'll see it in a minute. We also provide vulnerabilities and security recommendations for IoT devices. Again, for customers to be able to translate risk into an action plan, to utilize network and IT teams in order to reduce the attack surface and make sure that we are able to effectively assess the risk of the entire network and not just the endpoints or the perimeter. And naturally, security alerts that are either from an IT to IoT, think lateral movement, think brute force, think scanning, but also from IoT to IoT, which is something that today security teams are completely blind to. They have zero visibility to any communication that happens between two IoT devices, and naturally not the means of investigating and understanding such alerts. So let's do a quick demo of our product and our approach around it. I do want to mention that the enterprise IoT product in Microsoft is shared, as mentioned, between Defender for IoT and MDE. The same data exists in both portals. Because we have a lot of MDE users on this call, I will show the Defender for Endpoints portal, but we also have the Defender for IoT portal that also contains the inventory and other means. And at the end, both portals will be a mirror view of the same security value, and users can choose what will be the best and most fitting portal for them. Perfect. So this is the Defender for Endpoints device inventory page. As you can see, there's a tab here for IoT devices. Basically, this means that for endpoints, whether they are managed or not, for network devices and for IoT devices, we have a single location, a one-stop shop for these devices. So this already makes it so much easier for security teams to manage different devices through the same portal. You don't need another UI, you don't need another system, you have everything here. As mentioned, the context, the classification, I think this is perhaps the most important part of this product, to identify what previously has just been seen as an IP address. Now we can associate it to a specific device, to a specific function, to a specific business operation. So this already provide context, and users can now better understand their environment and identify rogue or misconfigured devices, even just based on that. We said that, again, it is hard for the security teams to kind of keep track of existing and new devices. So we've added this capability of basically filtering what new devices has been identified so that customers can, again, add it into their security operations and on a daily basis investigate these new devices and decide whether they're legitimate, if they are rogue, and if we need a new security procedure or process in our organization in order to manage these devices. Additionally, around the risk and exposure, to know if these devices have been identified to have vulnerabilities, security recommendations, misconfigurations, or if they're even associated with suspicious activity or an ongoing incident. So it is easy for customers to prioritize what devices need attention, and perhaps even that they are part of a greater incident that needs to be addressed immediately. I will also show, second, of course, that it would require re-authentication. Okay, perfect. Close this and open it again. All right. Perfect. So users can also identify how important this device is. Naturally, a security camera in the back office or outside of our building is not necessarily very interesting, but the conference phone in the CEO room is definitely a very high importance device, and we want to acknowledge that. So having this way of prioritizing enables us to be very proactive and put the effort in the right place. Also, managing tags allows us to identify owners or associate business functions, locations, and generally say anything that we want or need about the device, and makes it much easier for us to manage it. In the device page, we can get the full details for this device. So again, full and very rich context about the bill of material of the device, the vendor and model, information about the firmware, about operating system, what applications have been identified on that device, as well as vulnerabilities and security recommendations that we have associated with this device, and as mentioned, even alerts. We can go straight to the CV repository and basically see if we have a specific vulnerability that we want to know that affects IoT devices. Just as an example, about a year ago, we published several vulnerabilities associated with IoT devices called bad alloc that affects memory corruption in billions of IoT devices throughout the world. Having the ability to search if and what devices we have that are affected by this CV enables us to translate it into an action plan and decide, again, how we're better protecting and managing the security of our network and our organization. And with incidents and alerts, again, we can get the context of if there is a suspicious or malicious activity that a given IoT device is associated with. For instance, in several of our customers, we've seen how printers are being used for scanning, for lateral movement, and are taking a bigger parts of incidents. So getting that context here and managing it as part, again, of the IT operation of the existing way that we're going about incidents makes it much more easier and much more scalable for our team. We don't need necessarily more manpower. We just need more context and more tools within the products that we already have. Also, really around the active hunting, we can get mostly security and network information about IoT devices, and we will see that in our next example. So now that we're better familiarized with the portal and the different parts around IoT security, I wanted to show a quick example of how this is actually being used. And this is based on an example from a big customer that we're working with and that is part of our private preview community. So it all really started with the customer need to identify the devices in the organization, but mostly printers. They were moving to several new buildings, and there was basically a lot of chaos as part of this move. And one of their necessities was to identify now where are all the printers and kind of make sure that they are aware of it and make sure that they are in line with the security standards and best practices that they've defined in the organization. So with the visibility that we offer, it was very simple for them to identify and to manage these printers. It allowed them to dive deeper and understand really, again, the bill of material and how these printers are currently configured, and to very easily see if perhaps there are updates that are available and are needed for these printers, so that they can, again, decide if there's a risk, if they need to be proactive, and if so, for what printers, where they are, but most importantly, who's the owner, who needs to be assigned for this task, both from the security perspective and from the IT perspective. So this really allowed them to very quickly and easily identify what misconfiguration, what risks are associated with these devices, and really contextualize and understand, okay, this is the total sum of vulnerabilities that we have for these printers because they are not patched, because they are not up to date with their operating system and applications running on the printers. And let's see what action plan we need in order to resolve this issue and make sure that all of the devices are in fact secure, that we're reducing the attack surface that is associated with these printers. They wanted to be extra cautious, and they performed some hunting around these printers, kind of making sure that they have not communicated in any strange or weird way or something that may indicate that they're in fact in an ongoing incident or attack. So having that visibility of how IoT devices are communicating with each other with endpoints enable them to secure that all of the printers are in fact working as expected, behaving as they should, and there's no additional action that is required. Even with that, they had some more requests around what can be done for similar situations. And we've added really the ability to isolate hosts, endpoints basically, to not communicate with infected or suspicious IoT devices. So if, let's say, a user is now bringing a Raspberry Pi and just plugging it into the network, the security team identifies this, understand that this is not an authorized device, and wants to make sure that legitimate and authorized devices, mostly endpoints, are not engaging with this rogue device, they can provide a specific isolation indicating all the endpoints to not have any sort of communication with this Raspberry Pi. They can automate their processes either with third-party products or with Logic Apps, which is the automation power tool we have in Azure for automation and for ticketing, and to manage any incident that this may include either in Sentinel or as part of MDE, M365 Defender, again, to kind of use the existing ecosystem, the operations that they already use for managing their IT solutions, to include IoT solutions as well. So this was a very quick yet deep overview of our enterprise IoT. Our main focus is really delivering high quality inventory alongside actionable security recommendations and insights around vulnerabilities. And we're already seeing how and keeping track of how the security world is changing and how IoT devices are kind of moving within the overall security world. And a few trends or a few movements that we've identified and that we are working on managing and providing solutions for are as follows. So first and foremost, we're seeing how governments, how regulators are understanding that IoT is a huge problem, and they are now taking action on creating regulation, on creating best practices, laws, rules, and compliance for IoT devices to make it easier for states and for organizations to manage IoT security. This is naturally something that we're keeping close track of and would help our customers to follow major and new regulation around IoT security as part of our product, and in order to make this change as swift and easy as possible. So this is a very big thing that is already happening. More than that, and this is something that we're also seeing very much happening in the OT world and not necessarily only in the IT environment, is hybrid networks, how managed and unmanaged devices are kind of mixing into another, which makes it very difficult for IT teams to kind of manage in scale. We are providing an intent to put more effort around solutions that would help to manage it in the network level as well as the device level, so that security teams will have multiple solutions that they can utilize in order to meet this risk and to mitigate it in the best way possible. And naturally, we are keeping a very close eye on adversary. We have our Section 52, which is our research team, originally from CyberX, that is completely dedicated for investigating threats, vulnerabilities, adversaries in the world of IoT and OT. And this is taking an increasingly large part of the overall research done in Mystique, which is the Threat Intelligence Security Center of Microsoft, because they too understand that focusing on IT or focusing on endpoints is just not enough, that our customers, that the organizations that work with us need the new need the security, threat intelligence, and the security perspective to also include these new devices. So kind of key takeaways from this presentation overall that I hope you were able to take with you. We are fully committed to providing excellent solutions in the OT and IoT environments. But more than that, we're dedicated to making it easy for our customers to onboard and use this products, and to quickly implement and benefit from them in the organization. I believe that Microsoft is truly uniquely positioned with respect to IoT security, not only because of the firepower that we bring from respect of our visibility, our data, and naturally our people and research, but also because of our ability to harness different Microsoft products, really as we did with Defender for IoT and Defender for Endpoints, where we are creating this better together story of leveraging and taking the most out of every product to work together and provide this really easy to deploy, easy to use, and quick to benefit products to solve this very complicated problem around IoT security and unmanaged devices security. And naturally, and I think this was mentioned also in the start, we as a security community and as Defender for IoT specifically, would love to have you on board to discuss IoT security, to discuss OT security, and to better showcase where we're going, what our products can do, and get your feedback and your help on making our products the best possible. So thank you very much. I think we have a little bit more time for questions.
Yeah, great. So we do have a couple questions. The first one is, does the collection only focus on Windows 10 and 11? What about situations where older versions of Windows are being utilized? Are they excluded? What about other operating systems? Will they be excluded or included in the collection?
That's a great question. So I have my answer is divided into two parts. The first part is that we have plans on utilizing or basically extending the collection through the MDE agents to additional OS versions across Windows as well as other operating system. This is something that we're looking to do in the second half of 2022 and next year as well. So that's the first part. The second part is really around, again, the better together story of the collectors, that even with that, even if customers have today segments of the network that they do not have a Windows 10 or Windows 11 device there that can be used for scanning for collection, then there's the network sensor that can be used. And this is really our recommendation for our customers. Use both of these tools to work together, and this means that deployment will be very easy and very quick without compromising on the visibility and the context.
Great, thank you so much. The next one is, does the discovery using MDE only work for Windows 10 and 11, or also Linux, Mac, and mobile devices such as iOS and Android that are running MDE?
So I think it's perhaps very similar to the previous question. Today, the agents that are capable of performing the collection are only agents running on Windows 10 and Windows 11. And as mentioned, in the future, we will add this collection capability to additional OS versions. From the classification perspective, we are able to identify all devices, endpoints running Windows, Mac, Linux, IoT devices, network devices, again, with respect to many and multiple OS versions.
Okay, great. The next one is, can we restrict the already onboarded IoT devices?
So this is actually something that we're looking to have in the future, which will be basically based on integration with other security products in the network, and to build automation for this operation, basically to connect Defender for IoT and the enterprise IoT visibility and security with security products that can effectively enforce policies and operations on IoT devices as well as endpoints and servers in the network.
Great. The next one, we got a request to show the Defender for IoT portal, if possible.
Let me check, but maybe let's move to the next question while I'm looking into
Okay.
it.
Next one, could you clarify pricing? Defender for cloud is quite pricey. How much does it cost?
Defender for cloud or Defender for IoT? I'll naturally address Defender for IoT. So Defender for IoT and enterprise IoT specifically is still in public preview, which means that all Microsoft customers can onboard and test and use it, and it is not being charged at the moment. As I kind of mentioned earlier, we are planning to go GA with our offering in June. And from that point on, this will be a paid product. The specific pricing is still being finalized, so I don't want to share anything that might change in the future. But I will say that we are in very deep knowledge of the market and the prices, and we're looking to have a competitive price that will put this product in a very well-positioned place, especially for Defender for Endpoints customers.
Great. And our next question is, how is Microsoft combining CMDB, ITSM, asset management, including updates with Microsoft Defender for IoT? Is all of this one tool with multiple capabilities or more third-party interface?
Perfect. So first of all, we've seen how enterprise IoT comes into effect in MDE. MDE or M365 Defender already has a lot of out-of-the-box integration with ticketing tools, with CMDBs, with SIEM solutions, and that can be naturally used for IoT devices as well. On the Defender for IoT side, this is also something that we're working on, even not specifically for enterprise IoT, but for OT security and managed IoT security as well. Of course, a very big emphasis for us is to integrate with Sentinel, and for Sentinel users to be able to carry out a lot of the investigation and getting the context and understanding around IoT and OT security in a single space.
Great. And the last question we have is there a risk of scanning users' home networks when using the endpoints as sensors?
That's a beautiful question. So we're actually restricted that sort of scan before we start collecting data in any sort of case using the agents. We're performing a test to ensure that the environment that we're running in is in fact a corporate environment, that it is not a home environment or an unknown one, really to make sure that we're not compromising personal information or personal users, and to very much keep it within the domain of the corporate.
Great. So I'd like to thank Nimrod for being our guest today and for an excellent presentation, and thank you to the rest of the team who helped answer questions. At the same time, I would like to remind the listeners that the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements is to visit our landing page at aka.ms/securitycommunity. And while there, you'll find easy ways to navigate and find the resources and learning content relevant to our security products and their communities. A good start would be browsing our bite-sized product videos, ninja trainings, recordings of past webinars, GitHub communities, and more. We love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. Please take a minute submitting your webinar feedback at aka.ms/securityWebinarFeedback. Thank you, and see you next time. Goodbye.